Welcome to the Comic Binge. I am your host, Paul Herman, and today we have Long Live the Legion, episode 3, which I am very, very, very excited to talk about. So if you haven't already done so, please hit the subscribe button, like button, all that crap. I hate always begging for this, but that's just the way the world works. You know, y'all, it's just the way the world works, how we do it. So today, Long Live the Legion, episode 3, with a very awesome tie-in with X-Men, with the whole X-Men 97 craze going on. But again, one more time, if you're just joining us, please, sorry, my voice is cracked, hit the subscribe button. So today we've got Mr. Chris Clow. How are we doing today, sir?
More creeped out than I thought I would be after reading some of these books.
Wait, you're creeped out?
Yeah.
What? How are you creeped out?
Dude, 184, right out of the gate is kind of a creepy story.
We'll get into it. And last but not least, the very wonderful and very generous with his time, comic writer extraordinaire, Joe Corallo. Hello, Joe.
Hello.
You're back.
Good to be back to talk Legion, specifically every Dave Cockrum story.
Yes, and that's who we're talking about today. Dave Cockrum, would you say, Joe and Chris, would you guys say that he's like the godfather of the all different X-Men?
Yeah.
It's yeah, I mean, we literally like not to diminish, Len Wein or Chris Claremont, but right out the gate, you do not have Nightcrawler and Storm without Dave Cockrum.
Yeah.
Like, those are two unique creations of his that are, to this day, easily two of the most popular X-Men.
Easily.
Like no contest, like hands down. They've both had multiple mini-series or attempts of series solo titles, which is... it's there are very few X-Men that can pull off a solo title, so that's impressive. And then I mean, being the architect there behind the entire Phoenix saga and all of that, and really sticking with it, like, for years, until you get John Byrne. And personally, the stories for me in Claremont's run really pick up around like the Proteus saga, which is around Byrne leading to the Dark Phoenix saga. But all that, like, all like the paving the way for the X-Men to become a franchise, it doesn't happen without Cockrum. Like, it just doesn't. Like, I don't think, if you don't have Nightcrawler and Storm, you have maybe another artist on it who isn't, clicking with Claremont in that same way. I don't know if it happens.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, we are talking about obviously the Legion of Superheroes, but as Joe has said, Dave Cockrum, Dave Cockrum, the artist here, who is the famous artist who drew this very classic, maybe one of the most famous superhero comics ever created, you could say, monumental. Yep. He drew this comic book, but he cut his teeth on what we're going to be covering today. But Chris, I wanted to kind of, get your opinion on Dave Cockrum and just your history with the artist that we're going to be talking about and the X-Men a little bit here.
Well, I was today years old when I found it. So Colossus has never had an ongoing, at least to my knowledge. He did have a one-shot in 1996, 97. And Paul, guess what, man? It was written by Ben Robb, the writer of that Action Comics 791 issue that we read.
What?
Yeah.
Whoa.
I just found that out today.
Now, hold on. Now, there is, I don't have it. One of these days, Chris, I'm going to make you come over and help me organize the comic library because it's very unorganized, as you know.
Yeah,
but
sure.
I'm pretty sure Ann Nesenti wrote some kind of like Colossus thing, if I'm not mistaken. That's maybe it's like a one-shot graphic novel. Is this ringing a bell at all, Joe? Is this making sense?
No, that sounds kind of familiar. I'd have to really think about that, but yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so I think, but either way, Chris, it is crazy because Colossus hasn't had much, which is just kind of a shame. But I love Colossus, but I don't know if he's a good
Yeah.
solo character.
Probably. I mean, look, I don't know if I would necessarily go to bat for him as a solo character, but I've always liked him. And I mean, he's clearly one of the more eye-catching characters just on this cover as far as the original creations go. Not to take anything away from anybody else, but I mean, the design alone is just so great and very time tested now by this point. Yeah, I mean, look, I think that honestly, like the first time that I remember hearing Cockrum's name was when I was working as a retailer. So it was kind of embarrassingly late in sort of coming to the Dave Cockrum party. But we got these Eagle Moss used to put out these lead figurines of different characters, and Roman, our store manager, was so psyched that we got the lead fig from Eagle Moss of Saturn Girl in the Dave Cockrum design. That was the first time I remember hearing his name. It was like, this must have been 2008 when I finally came to the Dave Cockrum party. And from there, of course, I went to school. But no, I mean, I think that he's a singular creator with an incredible eye for detail and vision. No pun intended. And I mean, the work on X-Men speaks for itself, but also too, I mean, just the dynamism in his Legion work. And granted, you know, I haven't read an abundance of his Legion work. You know, we'll talk about some of it here, but you know, prior to this point, I hadn't read very much of it. But man, does he have an eye for the medium? Don't know how many of his designs, particularly for the ladies, might fly in an era like today, but be that as it may, I mean, the guy's artistic pedigree is very well established.
And really quick before we get into the Legion of stuff, you know, I gotta say I am very grateful for Dave Cockrum because Storm and Nightcrawler are definitely Nightcrawler is my favorite X-Man. Like he is by far my favorite. His design's perfect, and Storm is probably like I think one of the best, one of my favorite X-Men characters too. But like I think she is such a important character, you know, for superheroes and things like that. It's just being an African American, or she's African American character, and not only that, but like a strong female character, and just how him and Claremont really did a great job of developing this character over time. And obviously John Byrne later on, but Dave Cockrum, like you said, Joe, like he's the one that she's exists because of him, you know. So that's awesome. So I have a lot of questions today too for you, Joe. So I'm very excited about this. I'm very excited about this. So if you're new to the show, we have 2 previous episodes with Joe, Long Live the Legion, episodes 1 and 2. You get to check it out in the playlist section. And we are going through the Legion of Superheroes just over the course of time. I know it's some of Joe's favorite characters. Yeah. And I've been really happy because I've had such a very, you know, blank spot for these characters. Of all 3 of us, I'm the one who knows the least. So I'm learning from the very beginning, from the Jim Shooter era, now to the Cary Bates and Dave Cockrum era. And I know them a little bit, but what's really cool is I'm just learning so much, and I'm really starting to really fall for these characters. And I'm not just saying that, I'm being legit. Like I'm really starting to get why these characters are so rich, and why, like, you know, recently, I meant to ask this before, but I'll just bring it up now, whatever. But your friend or compadre Perch, he did a video recently. I just realized he talked about like Legion and how they are just an untapped potential.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, man, like, and like, I knew that already before you posted the video because of you, Joe, and Chris. But like, even after reading these comics now, guys, I really believe that. Like, I totally see the potential's there. So I'll let you kind of have the floor here, Joe. Talk about, we had Shooter before, and I'm sure this isn't like a complete lead in right from Shooter. I don't think so. Talk about maybe what happened in between Shooter and this era, or if there is it, I don't know. But yeah, kind of take us into this new era we're going into.
Yeah, well, they shortly after they line up Cary Bates, and he has it's like rotating artists for a while, but basically before Dave Cockrum, you have God, it's like 2 years or so of the Legion just kind of being stuck in backups. We did a few of the backups last time, and and that's when Shooter left, because it was like, I'm getting it's backups in Action Comics sometimes. And then they're like, all right, fine. So they get Cary Bates after. There's a little bit of a break where I think you have like your E. Nelson Bridwells and stuff doing stories, and then it's like, okay, well, let's get Cary Bates, who's another teenager who's a writer who so I do think overall, I think Jim Shooter was more imaginative and had some more compelling stories, like overall. However, I think Cary Bates was exactly the right person to take over after Jim, because, and we'll get into it, but his stories, there is some imagination. I don't think he hits it quite. He doesn't go quite as like out there as Jim, but he has some interesting stories, and Wildfire is one of my all-time favorites,
dude.
And
I can't wait to get into that. I cannot wait.
Yeah, and that's a Legion he could hang his hat on for designing, and that design in particular has been timeless and has just been used. Like, no one's really done any major modification on that costume, because you don't have to.
Yeah.
So that's really impressive. But Cary does this interesting thing where he's also tapping into the Shooter era and before the Shooter era. We get recurrences of some old villains like Starfinger and things like that, and he also, and he does a good job at carrying over some of the continuity, like like, oh right, the Miracle Machine, and like things like that. Like,
that was I didn't know Cary, or was it Corey or Cary? It was Corey, right?
Cary,
I had no idea. Yeah, Cary. Sorry, I had no idea that he was a teenager. And then, like, it's really interesting. And that whole Miracle Machine thing, we'll get into in a second. I'm like, oh, hell yeah. I totally forgot about that too. Like, oh, wow. That's great.
No, but yeah, so it was years. But Dave Cockrum, when he came on, he elevated the Legion, because like he comes on Superboy 184, like we got to. But like before that, I mean, it had been languishing in Action Comics backups. It was languishing as like a Superboy backup. They couldn't find an artist to stick with the book because it wasn't coming out regularly enough. So they want the assignment, because it's like, what am I going to get 8 to 10 pages every 3 months? Like, no, like, so. But Dave Cockrum was a young artist who was just coming up. He was working under Murphy Anderson, who's an incredible inker, who inked that first story that they did together. Who is Murphy Anderson's also really well known for doing Superman Action Comics kind of covers with Kurt Swan that are often referred to as Swanderson covers and things like that. But yeah, so it was at Superboy 184, Dave Cockrum like found out there was that opening, and he went for it. And he was just so enthusiastic. He was about 30 at the time. This was like his big break. He had been working at Warren and doing some of the other like black and white, like horror kind of comics for a little bit before Murphy Anderson brought him in to start inking. And then, he had been inking and doing things like that under his guidance, but had really wanted to just break into, penciling and, and this was his big break. because no one wanted it. And that started that relationship with Cary Bates, and the two of them together got the book so popular that it's went from being an occasional backup to the lead story in Superboy by the time Dave Cockrum left the book. Which is an incredible feat. And at the by the time he left the book, he was the most popular artist that had ever worked on Legion.
Which is saying something, because you had Kurt Swan, like with the Jim Shooter era, right? Like, and you had like, and he's like obviously a legend. So it's not like, it's like he only had like a bunch of peons he was, competing with. And I guess my question was, so when Dave Cockrum got this, do you think that like was the Legion a popular? I mean, they obviously were the backup pages; they weren't that popular. But do you think that there was like was there an affection, or was there a competition? Do you know for this job for penciling, or was it pretty much like it's what anyone who wanted could get it?
Anyone who really wanted, who was there at the time, really could have gotten it. Because I mean, you see like the kind of people who are working out beforehand, like your Ross Andrews, your George Tuskas, your like, hired gun sort of studio artists. They're good artists, but it's like
Ross Andrews did Legion.
He did like a couple of issues, yeah.
Okay, just a couple. Okay.
Yeah, because this was at that like, like, oh, we need someone to come in and do like an 8-pager. And then when's the next Legion story? I don't know. It's like that kind of thing.
Okay.
But one thing that's important to keep in mind too is when the Legion ended its Adventure Comics run, it was like 380, or I think was the last one. It is said that had happened because I think it was Mort Weitsinger was still editing the books at the time. Was told he needed they needed to Supergirl was gaining some popularity, and they were like, we need to have a book that's like a Supergirl feature book. And what it said is Mort Weitsinger was kind of like, all right, just put her in Adventure Comics and just bump the Legion. That the Legion had been popular still, but because of internal politics and stuff, they just, axed it, even though it was selling.
Classic.
Yeah. So
the egos probably, I'm assuming.
Yeah. So like it was like languishing in backups, but it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It was like, well, when it was a feature, it sold fine. Like it wasn't a cancellation. They just swapped it. So they kind of created a situation where the book was languishing because there wasn't a book, and then when it's an irregular backup, it's hard to keep a regular artist. So there's all these things that then sort of engineer this to happen. And then comics for many decades, right to the present day, would also do things very similar to axing popular books for internal politics and stuff like that, and then being like, or fiddling with your properties because maybe another studio owns the movie rights, and then diminishing your brand, and then being like, why is our brand not doing as well after we actively weren't promoting them for a while? But it's neither here nor there. So this happens, and they're really lucky that Dave Cockrum was able to come in, commit, was so excited about the books. He was doing all these like redesigns of the costumes. He had his own ideas, and that's actually part of why he ended up leaving. He got the X-Men offer, but I mean, and he wouldn't have gotten it if
he
didn't resurrect the Legion, basically.
Which it's because people often compare Legion with X-Men, and it makes sense in the sense of where the over convoluted continuity that they both have had over the years, because it's an ensemble book, right? Like it's a comic that you are constantly introducing new characters. I mean, like to the nth degree. I mean, every comic and story should be, if ongoing comic, I should say, should be introducing some kind of new character or characters, right? But Legion and X-Men, because they're a book that's based upon a group of people, one way or another, you have to be introducing multiple people. So you have to have an artist on his or her toes who could be constantly revamping and redesigning things. So it's amazing the Legion, like we wouldn't get the X-Men that we know it without the Legion. It's
No, and Dave Cockrum also enjoyed like he was a sci-fi guy. So like John Fort, Kurt Swan, some of these other artists that were doing it beforehand weren't necessarily sci-fi guys. So you would sort of get these situations. And again, like it's cool stuff. I enjoy it, but you'd get these things where it's like this rocket ship interior looks like a wooden cottage home, and like things like that. But like he had a very he was a fan of Star Trek and things like that. It was like, oh, let's have some like nice looking ships, and let's like go crazy with the interiors, with the monitors and the consoles, and really elevated the book as like a sci-fi book in particular through his design interest. But
most great creatives are fans of Star Trek. I'll just throw that out there.
That's fair. So, but
anyway, Joe.
No.
Anyway.
But,
all right, so let's get started with the first issue. Unless you want to add anything before we move on, Chris. I want to leave you speechless over there.
No. I mean, I've got literally nothing to add to that.
Joe,
I'm learning things myself here.
I you and Alex from Comic Book Historians together, because you guys both know. I mean, obviously Alex is like a comic, that's his name, but like you have so much history behind you. You know your SH. So I love it. I love learning from you.
Thank you.
By the way, is your shirt a Kareen shirt?
The band Kareen.
Yeah, I love Kareen.
I saw Kareen live last month.
Dude, I saw your shirt. I'm like, he's not wearing a Kareen shirt. There's no way. There's no way.
They played with Ghost Cop. It was great.
Dude, just really quick, the song what's it? It's on for EP. Something about flowers. It is just a banger. They're a good band. I saw them live too in Seattle a couple years ago, right before the pandemic. So
nice. Yeah, no, they're really good.
I saw that shirt. I saw it. I'm like, that's no way in hell it's a Korean shirt. Hell yeah. See, we got more in common than you realize, Joe. Exactly. Anyway, I'm sorry. That's so funny. Oh my God, I'm dying.
It is.
All right. So Joe, I'll kind of spoil this for people. Joe had to help us out on this one because for whatever reason, the dark web that we were going on, Chris, didn't have the backup for this for some reason. I guess. But anyway, we're gonna go through the issues. There's a bunch. I put them all in the description below if you're wondering. This is 184, Superboy 184. And I gotta be honest, I'm glad that you were able to give us the pages, Joe, because I think this is probably my favorite of the backups, of like the true backups, in my opinion. Like, I'm glad because I really like this issue. Oh, and before I do anything else, I'm really excited because I showed Joe and Chris this earlier. All these comics that we're talking about, we can't get anywhere besides digital, which is fun. Or no, I'm not even sure if they're on DC Unlimited yet.
No, they're not.
Well, guess what? They're about to be, because look.
Hey.
Dude, look at the bottom. Jim Shooter, Joe and Chris.
Nope.
Cary Bates and Dave Cockrum.
They announced so many of these within the last 48 hours. It's great.
Dude, how rad is that? Oh, I'm so excited. So we will actually be able to read these comics, I'm assuming, like this one we're going to be talking about here, Joe. actually in a comic book for once, besides one you had that are out of print.
Yeah, no, these archives, are super out of print. But one of the interesting things here too that I just have to say out the gate is it is, and I'm sure you probably both had the same reaction. It's fascinating looking at Dave Cockrum's art inked by Murphy Anderson. Those first 3 of these shorts or shorter stories that Murphy Anderson also inks, you just look at, you're like, this is really kind of this interesting, cool kind of look. I think it's pretty unique.
It's different than his other art. I'll say that. It's different. I wasn't used to that one, the first 3 ones, than I was till later on. It felt more traditional maybe, but yeah, I know what you mean.
It's just like a historical anomaly that it kind of exists. It's just one of those things you're like, huh, that's so interesting that we can look at this and see what it looks like and everything.
Right. All right. So this issue is again my favorite. And these are all these backups are what, 8 pages? If that,
about 8 pages, yeah.
Yeah, they're whatever. So go. So if you wanted to sum it up, and we can talk about the issue for a second, then we'll move on. Go ahead, Joe. Take it away.
Sure. Yeah. This one, Matter Eater Lad, who should be everyone's fan favorite, Matter Eater Lad. There's some detecting of evil thoughts that Saturn Girl picks up. Emanating from him. So he sort of runs away. He goes back home just to find out that his younger brother was the one manipulating the situation, and then cracks him in the face so hard with the back of a gun that he almost dies. So he has to basically give himself up to the authorities here in the Legion.
Not even the best part, though.
His brother. Yep.
Not even the best part. It's coming up.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, so that happens, and then he's just like, "No, don't worry about it. You're cool. You can even be me if you want.
You can be Matter Eater Lad."
Yeah. You can be Matter Eater Lad if you want. I don't care that you tried to kill me.
Dude, I just kind of at work, I was like, okay, because you did the best job you could to get the pages, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna read this, I'm sure it's gonna be whatever, and I was actually oh my god, what is this? I DM'd you, I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I thought that was I was not expecting the evil brother to turn into Matter Eater Lad 2 at the very end in a span of 3 panels.
Yep.
Chris, what was your take reading this comic?
Well, I read the whole thing, and it was the Superboy story that creeped me out. I was like, okay, I'll work up to the Legion backup because I've never read this issue of Superboy, and
of course you would.
Damn, he's worried about being a corpse. And it's just all about playing with his mind and destabilizing his psyche. And I thought that was kind of a cool, forward-thinking idea for a Superboy story, because that's how you get to Superman, right? You get to him through his human vulnerabilities, including his mind. So I like that. And then this backup was just bonkers, and it was bonkers in a way that I found highly enjoyable. But hey, that's the familial bond, right? You gotta forgive.
It is
to keep the wheels greased, so that you can keep things moving.
Lord knows if Chris knows my brother Derek. If Derek hit me in the face like that, I'd be like, "Oh yeah, Derek, go ahead and take my place on the bench. You deserve it. You can take him. I can't talk right because you gave me a stroke when you hit me in the face, but you can take my place." You want to say something, Joe? I don't know if you had something you wanted to add. Okay.
No, I don't have anything to add about you.
All right. So, next issue we'll go into. I believe it's 188, correct? Yeah, 188. Yep. So this one was interesting because it was the blood crystal. Is that Is that
the
is that
Curse of
right?
the Blood Crystals, because yeah, this is this is the only time we see I think Dave Cockrum draw Mordrew, who's one of the like classic recurring
The wizard
uh
character, right?
yeah, Legion villains, and this is at a time where I know it seems ridiculous that eventually I'm sure you figured they would do this, but eventually they do drop the he's powerless if he's buried alive bit.
About Superboy, right?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yeah, but no, that's
Oh, I mean Mordrew.
oh
Mordrew was
yeah,
buried
yeah,
alive.
no,
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
I know you, yeah, like because Mordrew, it's like, oh, being buried alive, my only weakness.
And I also love that it's Superboy at the very beginning throwing boulders on him, like, "Yeah!" Like it's just like, what the hell?
It's such a Dragon Ball Z kind of move. Like, I'm gonna bury you alive by just throwing enough boulders at you fast enough.
It's ahead of it. Dave Cockrum was ahead of his time, apparently.
He really was.
He really was. This was a very interesting issue because of just it. Because I mean, obviously, Superboy is going to play a pivotal part in most of these stories because it's his comic. But this one was a very interesting, just play off the whole Krypton like magic thing that kind of talk about his physical weaknesses. And Chris, you're probably the biggest Superman fan here. What was your take on some of these this little story here we got that takes over Superman here?
Honestly, I mean, the thing that I probably enjoyed the most about it was just seeing like more of the rapport between Superboy and the Legion. It feels really like deceptively well developed, like even though you had stories that were like adjacently taking place to the mainline DCU continuity, I mean, it was still technically like part of the wider tapestry. And it was just kind of fun seeing, especially once the Legionnaires went back into Smallville, it was fun seeing this very this just fun dynamic between them before things started getting to hell, Whisking the kryptonite into his mouth, I don't think is something I had seen him do before outside of, what was it, the Adams O'Neill attempted reboot where they just decided that he's going to eat kryptonite. Like it's kind of a strange sort of callback to or call forward, I guess, depending on how you look at it.
Wait.
But,
Neil Adams and Denny O'Neil had a run. I know Denny O'Neil had a run on Superman, but it was with Neil Adams.
It's a pretty famous panel of him just like eating kryptonite, and he complains about it. It's like, oh, it's a little stale. Maybe could use a little bit of salt, but it's a pretty nice snack. And it was like their way to try and move Superman beyond kryptonite. It didn't last very long, but
well, yeah, because that, like, in the White Singer era, it was just like every color kryptonite and just like and so many stories were just like, oh, I'm gonna go diving through mountains, and oh no, there's a pile of kryptonite in this mountain that must have came during one of the kryptonite meteor showers that keep happening for some reason.
Well, and kryptonite's been gone forever, right? I mean,
O'Neill himself complained about getting a hold of a character like Superman. He said that and I can't remember which issue he's referring to, but he said he read a story where Superman blew out a star the way you blow out a candle. Mm-hmm. And if someone can do that, like what can possibly stop them? Like there's no way to get conflict into the story. So DC wanted to try and scale Superman down a little bit, but still, get away from maybe the trappings of what had defined so many of the characters' stories. But I mean, that was just like a brief moment in the backup where he sucks kryptonite into his mouth. And it like very close, it was like the second to last page, I think. But there's just like this really kind of sweet undercurrent of the rapport between Superboy and the Legion members that are participating back in the past. And I think that's what I enjoy the most. I like seeing, why we should care about these relationships, because sometimes in these older stories, it feels, at least to me, like plot can get in the way of character at times, but that's not the case here. Like, they clearly understood what the dynamic was and why they do care about each other the way that dear friends would. And it's something that, it's weird because it's like, obviously I grew up reading in the 90s. This is well after, they kind of ditched Superboy as a concept, right? Several years after they ditched Superboy as a concept. But going back and reading these stories, there's like a retroactive kind of mourning that I feel like, that I was robbed of more Superboy stories with the Legion. And it wasn't until Johns picked up the baton and ran with it and informed people like me why it's such a special relationship between them.
And I think
that now I can go back and have way more fun with it.
Lord willing, we make it all the way through all these different Legion eras. I think, Joe, we have to do that era for Chris. I think Chris might combust if we don't do the Johns.
I won't combust. It's just like when Johns brought back the pre-Crisis Legion into Action Comics in 2008. That for me was a pretty like revelatory reading experience. That was really the story that opened up the Legion corner of the DC universe to me. And it's one of the things that I've only, much later realized that, well, Johns, I mean, he's kind of a Silver Age revivalist, but he doesn't tell stories the same way that the creators of the Silver Age did.
As he shouldn't be, to be honest. So
sure, but there's clearly like a segment that has value to the overall tapestry of the DC universe that was just kind of discarded without a lot of care. And I think the Legion, like they did stuff with the Legion during that time, of course, but the addition of Clark as Superboy being involved with them is just such a cool dynamic, and it opens up such a unique narrative pathway to tell stories about Clark himself, especially with like the more modern lens of an isolationist kind of childhood, and he doesn't have people he can relate to, but he can relate to these kids, and they just want him to have a good time.
Old comics are always good for a good laugh every once in a while, right? This panel I've already showed, but I'm going to show it again because it is hilarious. I had laughed out loud reading this at work. Must get back to headquarters as quickly as possible. I have a compelling urge to destroy Superboy, and nothing must stand in my way. Like, I laughed out loud so hard at that. I was like, that is just classic. I have a sudden urge to kill Superboy, out of nowhere. Oh, that's weird. Like, no big deal, right? So
no shred of self-reflection, but hey,
right. Right. So, which, by the way, another great cover. This cover is incredible, even though it's not really the comic we're reading, but this cover is so good. No, we're actually be reading this issue, which I've already saved here. Where did I find it? There it is. We've got Murder, Follow the Leader. Cross it out. Yeah. I gotta tell you, this is a pretty cool issue, and I feel, Joe, I'm curious where it stands for you, or if there's any kind of significance, because it feels like Cockrum really comes into a little more of his own in this one with the addition of the Fatal Five when they first come in. I'm just curious, is that ring? Am I making this up, or am I crazy?
No, I think so. I think I think he's also more comfortable doing this at this point. Now he's got like a couple in there. I think this is really where we get the what was it? Like, this is, I think, only the second time we're seeing that Saturn Girl costume. Because I think we only saw that. We don't have the Phantom Girl update yet, but that's coming. But you can see he's like slowly changing the costumes here.
I think this is. I'm sorry. Please continue.
No, I was just saying, but yeah, this is again, like, this is where Cary Bates, I think, is also doing some really good work here again with the continuity and doing a story where he can explicitly remind people, like, remember, Saturn Girl was a leader before. Remember, Monel's been a leader before, and things like that.
How woke! How woke is that shit? Oh God! No, I was really charmed by that. I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
This, I want to say this. It felt for me as I'm reading this, guys. Again, and I'm not gonna act like I'm some like super comic book expert of like, oh, let me put my pinnacle on, my monocle on, and be like, oh yes, this is where Dave Cockrum found himself in the depths of storytelling, whatever, right? No, I feel like this comic, this story specifically, I really started to see the electricity that Dave Cockrum has on page layouts. They start to come alive during this issue. And like, this is a great example. When they eventually do reprint the comic, which I'm assuming we're going to be getting here soon, which I can't wait, next year or this year or whatever. But this is a great example of just dynamic, really, really intriguing stuff where you have the background image with, Saturn Girl and Mon-El. Like, this is dynamic stuff. And this shows you why Marvel sought this guy out, because he started like really coming to his own. I think it feels like in 190? Yeah, 190 in this issue. And it's only 5 pages. And like, you also have the big giant guy from the Fatal Five, which I forgot his name. Love the way he drew him. And just like, there's some great layouts and showcasing of his talent as an artist and a storyteller that's all over this comic. And this is only like 8 pages long, but it's super fun and interesting.
Oh yeah, no, and again, like this is definitely a story where I think you see him, really leaning more into the different sci-fi elements. Like, he's having a lot of fun with these backgrounds on the alien planet, and like some of these other, sort of choices he's making, which I love. So yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. And yeah, there are a few really standout dynamic panels in this particular story. And it's a great use of the Fatal Five too, because like this might be the first time that we're just getting like
the reintroduction of them.
And it's the reintroduction, but it's just Tharok and
that's right. Yeah, they're dynamic.
Yeah,
for sure.
So that's really cool, dude.
Chris, anything before we move on?
Oh, I'm just really glad my boy Mon-El got a chance to shine in this one.
Mon-El, by the way, Mon-El still confuses me. This is where I get like, it's funny because as a creative person myself, as wanting to write comics one day, and like, I don't have any ambitions to ever write for the big two. I just it's never going to happen. But like, as I'm reading this, Joe and Chris, like, I can already see myself pitching ideas. I'm like, oh man, like this is like this whole Legion, I feel like is wasted potential. Like, of all these great ideas you could do, I'm like, damn, just by reading these simple backup stories, I'm like, you could go here, you could go there. It's crazy, So Mon-El is a very interesting character. I'm like, I don't really get this character really still. Like, is he a descendant of Superman? Is he just like
no,
don't tell me now. What's that?
He's a neighbor of sorts.
Yeah, he's a Daxamite.
Yeah.
Oh, you're killing me here, guys. I'm so confused. All right.
If you really wanted to do a deep, Joe, did you read the new Krypton stuff in 2008 through 10?
It's been forever. I reread a bunch of the Supergirl stuff from that era not too long ago, so I have some of that in my mind. But yeah,
because Mon-El effectively assumed the Superman title for that entire stint pretty much. And James Robinson, I actually asked him at a convention, did you know that when you took the Superman assignment that you'd mostly be writing Mon-El? And he said, no, I had no idea at the time, which I thought was, they always mistreat James Robinson. I don't know why, but he did some great stuff with Mon-El. And this was during a time when they were really sort of reviving Daxam as kind of a force in the DCU. Sodom Yat was a big character in the Green Lantern books at that time, who ended up showing up in the Legion of Three Worlds, which I thought was really cool. But no, Mon-El is I think he's a really underrated supporting Superman character in addition to having a really important part of the Legion. I haven't seen. I guess he had a fair amount of a spotlight in the Supergirl TV show, which I haven't watched very extensively. I think I've seen the first 2 seasons of that show, but the fact that Mon-El's in there makes me want to go back. I guess he and Supergirl kind of hooked up, which I thought was kind of surprising.
We got a lot of books to cover, so let's go. I didn't want to derail us
Anyway,
too much.
just to wrap it up, I liked that Mon-El had a really solid moment in here, and I appreciated at the beginning how it's just kind of second nature, where they're like, it's probably time that a girl lead the team. Like, if that was published today, people would throw such a hissy fit.
Well,
but
we
it
know
looks
this.
like it's second nature and natural because everybody deserves a seat at the table. How about that? So I liked this one quite a lot. Yeah.
So this issue is a little more straightforward, but I'll just kind of add, basically the Sun Eater lad. What is his name? Not Sun Eater lad, but
Sunboy.
Sunboy. I get lad and boy mixed up. His arch nemesis shows up. Basically, and it's a pretty quick, but I think really interesting issue. This to me screamed X-Men all the way, Joe. I'm curious what your thought is. I thought I said it right here. This, I saw. I'm like, oh my god! Like I immediately thought of like Nightcrawler, doing this, and this is stuff that Dave Cockrum really. I feel like, again, he's starting to hit his groove with like storytelling and these panels and his layouts and whatnot. Not my favorite story, but it was actually really dynamic and interesting just how he laid it out.
Yeah, no. This is also only the second appearance of Dr. Regulus. He first appeared when Jim Shooter created him, which was the first. It was the first issue Jim Shooter wrote, but it was, I think, the second or third that was printed. So that was like the first like villain that Jim Shooter created. So to bring him back, and Dave Cockrum just said fuck it and completely redid his costume, and like no one batted an eye because the first costume like wasn't that impressive, and this is the Dr. Regulus costume that we pretty much see from here on out. Like,
and it's good. It's a solid costume.
Yeah, like again, Dave Cockrum, he just came up with these costumes, and so many of them stuck.
Yeah,
it's a solid supervillain costume for sure.
For sure. Yeah, I like this issue. I like this backup mainly because of the layouts and the cost. Again, I don't really know what the costumes were or remember that, but I did like the costume again. What we have here, Chris? Any comments on Sun Eater Boy, whatever his name is?
No, I thought that this was just a really, really fast-paced, just knock down drag out, which I thought was kind of appropriate. There's definitely a pace to it that I really appreciate. It's nice to see Shadow Lass in what is effectively mostly her final form, but overall, no, I thought that this one was fun. I think you can definitely see a bit of a Trek-ish influence, especially by the last page, which is fun. But no, I mean it's a creative way to dispatch the foe, and again, it's just like the team dynamic is front and center here. And I think part of the reason that I feel as strongly as I do about that is because of Cockrum's really excellent faces. Like the faces do such a good job of the emotional conveyance that anger looks angry, and there's whimsy, and there's just like a fun sort of these corner smiles that the characters have, especially on the last page too. But yeah, it's just another good solid fun story with these characters.
All right, and
next, see what you mean about the X-Men influence too. By the way,
no, it's there. Like you could see where Marvel was like, we gotta get this guy. He gets it. Like you could see the Kirby, the evolution of Kirby's influence initially, right? Anything you want to add on that, Joe, before we move on?
No, we can move on.
Okay. Next issue, we've got this one right here. My gosh, I have the cover here, and let me find it here. There we go. This is the issue where. Why don't you take this one away for us, Joe, and kind of lead us in?
Sure. I would say at this point, this is the most Star Trek issue or story I think we've gotten. It's well, you also have a lot of like space designs, just not just outer space, but a bunch of different ships. You have a lot of backgrounds and stuff. Like this is, I think, Dave Cockrum really going all in on the sci-fi, on the world building. The colorist, I'm pretty sure, just ended up coloring Matter Eater Lad wrong. That's why he's red in this issue. Like, because people apparently wrote in like being like, "Oh, Dave Cockrum like changed the costume again." People just assumed it was costume change. It was like he's like, "No, actually, I like the green for Matter Eater Lad." I wouldn't be shocked if maybe because of like that first panel, like that panel on the second page where it's Chameleon Boy shrinking Violet and Matter Eater Lad, that he was like, oh well, I gotta color him something different, or else it just looks like they're
Big
both the same
blob.
color.
Yeah,
Joe, could you do us a favor, because the source that we have access to, I think, washed the colors out kind of hard on this one. Can you show us your copy? Oh yeah, see, that's way more.
Yeah, let me.
That's way more vibrant.
Yeah, that. Oh my gosh, yeah, that looks way better.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, the prints that you've given us, and then looking at it right there, compared to like modern day recoloring, that's so much more of a gradual like next step of coloring, instead of just being like, here's a bunch of bright colors, we can just update it now. Bleh! Like Marvel does on all their unlimited stuff. That recoloring is so much nicer on the eyes and not as abrasive, and keeps to the tone of the original comic. Right? Would you agree with that? I love the way that looked. It looks great.
I do. Yeah, no, I like these archive editions a lot.
I'm so jealous.
Glad I was able to get those.
Yeah. This to me, design wise, guys, this backup, which is pretty short and pretty crazy. Dude, I gotta tell you, this was probably the most X-Men looking from a style, with all the different aliens they use, 100%. And again, what you said, Joe, you really see why it really showcases his ability to do these different things, and why like Marvel will be like, we gotta get this guy. This guy gets it.
Yeah, definitely.
Chris, anything about this story?
I mean, just what you said about this being the most Star Trek influenced. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that, because it's about preventing, two powers from destroying each other. And Star Trek has told a lot of stories like that. So it's in good company. And I love the design of just like the tech. And I like I don't know, it's not like it's an absurd image, but seeing Karate Kid sitting at like a space console for some reason is just funny to me.
I got that.
But I like it. It's not. I don't look down on it. I think it's a great product of not just the time, but the Legion concept, because there's just so many different variations of characters that we go on these journeys with, and sometimes we get a little bit of a slight fish out of water scenario, even though, for Karate Kid, traveling through space is routine. It's like traveling on the freeway for us, right?
Yeah.
But no, I like these. I mean, these are they just add to the overarching sense of fun, but they also add to an overarching sense of consciousness that I really appreciate.
So next is probably, I think it starts getting to like we're eating well, my friends. Yeah. So this is the introduction to, which I thought, because I have no idea, Joe, who the hell this is, what's going on. We get the introduction to the character for the first time we hear named Erg, which this was a really interesting issue where a character is trying to join the Legion and in the same time dies.
Yep.
And I'm curious if this, because this character comes back, and I because this probably character better than all of us. I'm assuming, Chris. I don't want to speak for you, but I'm assuming Joe probably knows most of this character. What happened? What was the deal with this character? Do you know any of the behind the scenes stories, or what happens here with this guy?
As far as I know, from what I've read from like Dave Cockrum, the plan was to always like to do this and to have him come back.
Okay.
But there was also this idea, I think, that Dave Cockrum, at least from what I've read, it seemed like he thought he was going to be Wildfire out the gate, and it was like Cary's idea to be like, no, we're going to like call him Erg first, so then we're going to do this, and he was like, I don't really understand why that happened, but whatever, it's fine, it's Cary's call. But yeah, so that's as far as I know with that. We also importantly get the new Phantom Girl costume in this issue as well, as the whole Legion is just starting to slowly change outfits. Not the new Princess Projectra outfit, which we do get pretty soon, but
I don't have. Yeah, I wish I would have gotten those pictures here. Let's see if this isn't. No, that's not what I'm thinking of. But yeah, this was a pretty cool issue. And again, you're seeing the influence of the X-Men, or the eventual influence of the X-Men, I think, in these costumes as we get in the previous issue and in this issue too, of what we'll be getting to eventually Giant Size X-Men in his X-Men run with Chris Claremont. So
yeah,
I thought Erg was cool. And then I like before I even knew what happened, I thought like that's a pretty cool idea to like kill off a new recruit right off the bat, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm starting to see, and Joe, let me know if this is am I wrong on this? Am I seeing a pattern of just, I want to say a pattern, but it seems like a lot of Legion characters die off in some ways. Like they keep like, because they're such a big group, people are like, oh, we can kill these guys. Who cares? Like, is that a common thing for these Legion characters?
There's more so probably than some other teams, for sure. But they also lean into, I mean, the idea of bad luck being a trope for the Legion is something that they've created, like the Luck Lords and other things regarding like before the Shooter era. Even I mean, like that's like shortly before Shooter came on was like the Luck Lords and like talking about like the bad luck that inherently affects the Legion. That's before they even killed off Pharaoh Lad. So I mean, that's just been like a thing for a while with them.
Yeah. So Chris, anything you want to mention on this issue before we move on?
I mean, Erg is new to me, honestly. The concept for the character, I didn't realize that Erg came before the second Captain Atom, because there's sort of a similar vibe between them, just in terms of each of them needing to wear like a containment suit. I mean, because I always liked Captain Atom quite a lot, but he came along post Crisis. At least the second one did. The first one was Charlton Steve Ditko, and I can count on one hand the amount of stories that I've read with the original Captain Atom. But Nathaniel Atom was the one that I connected to. So seeing a similar kind of concept explored here, but earlier, was a cool idea. And again, you're just getting, I feel like it's like a progression to notice how he gets to the kind of like even the blocking that you see even just on the cover of Giant Size #1, like when Colossal Boy is trying to hammer the big robot, that felt very X-Men-ish to me. And I thought that was pretty indicative of where he is going to go.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was cool.
So moving on here, speaking of X-Men, I think things really take that. And I hate bringing up X-Men right now, but I can't help it with Dave Cockrum.
Oh, sure.
But what's really cool about this is I love the way he draws Legion, and what we're going to get into right now is maybe my favorite, maybe one of the favorites we've read today is 197. This cover is just bitchin'. This is bitchin' cover. I mean, there's no wonder they're like, what should we make the cover of that Legion, like, new DC Finest? Oh yeah, let's just put that cover 197 because it's effing badass. It's just ridiculous how good this cover is. I mean, this, we talk about, or at least I talk about how the art of the comic cover is completely dead, it seems like. And I look at these, I'm like, the answer is right there in the past. Go back. Like, you can't get better than this. You can't do a better cover. You can't. Like, it's not about how well you can draw. It's like about the whole idea of the cover is there. That's what sells it. It's fantastic. So anyway, I love this issue. It really felt like Dave Cockrum finally hit, like, I've got this SH down now. And this just got so many characters. I mean, man, you really see the X-Men in this picture, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like, this is great. This is a great, I mean, this panel alone, guys, I love this panel. Superboy, like, from back, like, all the Legion, like, you can see everyone here, right? And Saturn Girl's costume, good Lord. All right. Not complaining, but yeah, oh, wow. You're right, Chris. But regardless, just so much great stuff in this comic book, man. Like, you got, I mean, this stuff here, like, I mean, this is, man, Lana Lane getting knocked out by an apple. I mean, that apple becomes a keyboard, baby. I mean, come on. Like, I love it. But, I mean, it's just perfect. It's a great issue, man. I love this comic.
It's so good. And we got the new Timberwolf costume design, which he clearly lifts and uses for Wolverine.
Yeah. Well, I remember faintly, in, like, maybe I was reading, like, comic book resources, Joe or Chris, and, like, those the comic book urban legends books, that the stories that put them on there, which I have the book of that. I need to read that one day. I want to say I think I read about, like, a Legion, like, urban legend. Legion is, like, why the X-Men are, and they talk about, I think I remember reading something about Timberwolf being, like, a prototypical Wolverine for Dave Cockrum, not for obviously the original 1980 or the Hulk 181 and 182 issues, but this iteration of Timberwolf is what it truly inspired what we know Wolverine today, which I got to tell you, this picture alone tells it. Like, that's Logan right there, in my opinion. So, but dude, but this, the story itself, this is a great issue. You talk about continuity, bringing back new characters. This to me, I think, is one of the best. Even listen, I love Jim Shooter stuff. The Feral Lad stuff is some of the best DC comics, in my opinion. They're great.
Sure. This
is, to me, equal to some of the best Legion comics I have read, in my opinion. So you're on par with that.
Yeah, no, I think that's, it's a fantastic story, and we're getting, and again, you're seeing all of these updates. You get the Lightning Lad costume update in here too. It's crazy how he's, like, slowly updating, modernizing, cleaning up, like, the Legion each time. It's really impressive.
Yeah. No, it's great. I love this issue. So would you say, amongst, I mean, you're probably more connected to the Legion fans, would you say this is is this an issue in particular a fan favorite? It seems like it would be.
I think it comes up a lot. I mean, if for no other reason than it's like that, like, reintroduction of Timberwolf, and this is like the start of, Bronze Age Timberwolf, really.
Okay, I see. Okay. Right. Yeah. No, Imperial Guard. I see Imperial Guard all over this. Like, 100%. 100%. Chris, we got this ball rolling. We're going a long time. I don't want to keep Joe up all night. So, what quick impressions of this issue?
Thumbs up.
Yeah, this is my favorite issue.
Quick enough for you.
That is quick. By the way, if anyone wants to really say that. Give me a favorite of the issues we've read today too. I would like to know. I'm curious. This is probably my favorite, with one more coming up here. We'll get to that in a second. All right. Next one we've got now, again, I love this issue too. This is another great one when the Fatal Five come back. So good. So good. Go ahead and just give it a brief rundown on this here, Joe, and your thought.
Well, this is not only fun because it's Return of the Fatal Five, but this is our first like full-length Legion story in years. Literal years have passed. It might be the first in like 3 or 4 years, a full book length issue. And it utilizes it well. It, again, like Cary Bates does like some fun things. It's like it's not only utilizing the Fatal Five, but it's utilizing the concept of time travel again, and just having fun with that stuff. And like we're gonna fight some of the Fatal Five in the past and some in the future, and like it's a really cool way to do this. It makes it feel fresh. Like one of the best things about the Fatal Five, especially up through this point, is every single time they show up, they feel like a threat, and it's a fresh feeling story. You still, like, even though this is like the half dozenth probably appearance of the Fatal, it's like the fourth, I think it's maybe the fifth time, maybe the sixth, if we count just Validus and Tharok earlier. That we're dealing with the Fatal Five. And every single time still, like, have them show up like 6 times and not rehash or play with like one other appearance, right? That's pretty impressive.
This was another good one. I Murderer's Row, you could say, because I remember reading Timberwolf's story. I'm like, this is pretty good. I like this. And then this issue came in. I'm like, damn, like I love that there's a different take on the future and everything, or affecting the past, etc., or past affecting the future. Excuse me. Fatal Five. I love the Fatal Five. Like anytime they show up, and man, the I forgot what's the guy with the axe's name? I always forget. It's not Execution. I want to call him Persuader. Dude, Persuader is just balling. I love that costume. So good. This is a great issue. Like I can't wait to get this like reprinted in that comic. DC's Finest coming out. Like this is gonna be a banging comic to have, and I can't wait to reread this. Chris, any thoughts on this issue?
I love Persuader.
Great costume.
No, I mean it never really occurred to me, but Joe is totally right. I mean, in instances where the Fatal Five have shown up, they never overstay their welcome, but they're always like, it's sort of like the Empire State Building, right? You don't always need to see it to know that their presence is felt. Yeah. And I appreciate how vindictive they are as villains that go up against a team like this, but also just the storytelling foresight not to overuse them. For a while there in the Bat books, you saw the Joker probably way too much. We're very well acquainted with Lex Luthor. We see Circe and Cheetah reasonably often in Wonder Woman books. But this is a story that really felt to me like if it were being published today, it could be like a line-wide crossover. Like the scale of it is just so big. It still tends to feel self-contained. I mean, that's why reading these books is kind of a bargain in comparison to reading comics today, because you get so much packed into these individual issues, and I think that this is a prototypical example of that.
Yeah. All right, next we have on the list, we got 199, and these covers is Cockrum doing the cover still, or is it Swan?
They're Cockrum.
This is a dynamic. I figured it was. I just want to make sure, because on my covers, I'm always a little trepidatious. Again,
sometimes Nick Cardy is inking him on those covers, but doing assists, but
This is a freaking, not my favorite issue, not a bad issue by any means, not my favorite, but look at this. Look at these costumes right here. I don't have much to say about the story about a gun possessing someone. It's pretty ridiculous. But these costumes right here just scream X-Men to me, fun story. Liked it. Okay. Anyone want to comment any more about this one?
What was it? I will say, again, with this story, some of the best aspects of it are the continuity of, you set up this villain, just a couple of issues ago, and he's back. And, it's like Cary Bates and Dave Cockrum kind of, setting up like what they're adding to the Legion. I also feel like for whatever reason, I don't know why it worked out this way, but this first page, this panel, Brainiac right there.
Yeah.
That Brainiac, that looks like a Gil Kane Brainiac. That looks like Gil Kane drew that.
Is it the nose?
I know I mean, the nose that's set up in the face, like it's very Gil Kane, and Gil Kane is, someone he certainly looked up to at the time, because who didn't? But yeah, and you see that like out of like, that looks like David Cockrum drew that. So
that's a great panel too, by the way. I love that panel.
Oh yeah. That's a great panel. No, it's a great panel, and yeah, it's a fun, sort of story. One of the weaker elements of it is Cary Bates recycling the Chameleon Boy, it was me all along twist at the end.
The classic Chameleon Boy.
Which Chameleon Boy specifically pretending to be one of the villains, and then it was me, like 2 issues in a row. I really wish they would have broken that up between, like it's like put 2 or 3 issues between that before you do it again. But yeah, no, it's still a good story.
All right, Chris, anything before we move on to this next one?
This is the first time I registered that the design for Starboy is the one that continues to persist today. I don't know if this is the first appearance of that, but it must be an early one.
That is a fantastic costume, considering when this came out. Like that's impressive. Like Cockrum had it. I mean, goes without saying, but Cockrum could draw the F out of costumes, man. He could design anything. That's impressive.
And Dream Girl too, I think. At least this might be an early appearance of that costume, but I mean, those are the ones that, to me, like when I think of those characters, those are the looks that I think of. So I thought it was cool to see them.
So moving on, we're almost done. Issue 200 of Legion of Superheroes here. This is probably my second favorite story of Balancing Boy marrying Dual Damsel, and it's way more interesting than I gave it credit for. You kind of saw the plot twist coming, basically, in some ways, but it's done really well. I thought for me, I thought this is a pretty good issue.
Yeah, it's a full length issue.
Yeah.
You get that double page spread, and that is very clearly the Macron crystal.
Yes, dude, right?
Yep.
I have it right here. Yeah, see, this is blown up for. I had to pick this. This is 1000% X-Men. 1000%.
Oh yeah.
Macron crystal.
Just the density too. I mean, I feel like George Perez must have been a big Dave Cockrum fan.
Oh, for sure.
Because there is so much just on that spread by itself that is very evocative of a style that I associate with someone like Perez.
Now, let me throw this question out to you guys, and this kind of, I don't want to get too in the weeds here, so give me a quick answer, and I apologize, but I really want to know it really quick. It feels like today's artist, and I'm not an artist, so what the hell do I know? But it feels like they'd really struggle doing this kind of panel on a deadline, because if you look at it again, I'm not an artist, and I don't know what the hell I'm talking about completely, but just from my untrained eye, it seems like Cockrum knows where to put the detail and where not to put the detail, and where to does that make sense? And lets it kind of. I just feel like more artists should do stuff like this. It seems like maybe I don't know if I'm talking out my ass here, but am I making sense? It feels like this no one does this now because it's too hard. But other artists, but back in the day, be like, yeah, I'm gonna do this and figure this out. Like this is a perfect, these guys up in the corners, you don't need to know who they look like, or even the background here a little bit. Like they don't spend so much time on this stuff. Just focus on what matters, which is Dual Damsel and Bouncy Boy and whatever. And
but at the same time too, there's enough there to clearly demonstrate that there's a lot of people there, and
exactly.
It's like your brain fills in the rest of the details where necessary. It's like a deceptively low amount of detail, but it is just enough, and there is clearly a lot of effort given to the far off details, which is just really cool.
Joe, anything you want to add on that? Am I talking about my ass?
Yeah.
Tell me.
No, I get what you're saying. I think with that sort of thing, there are some artists that are doing that, right? Like
no, for sure.
I wouldn't be no. I get what you're saying, but like so like I could see like a Daniel Warren Johnson doing something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. He's a great artist,
and stuff like that. But yeah, like I don't know, like, but I also get you're speaking from a consumer end, and that makes perfect sense because like, yeah, it's like I don't know off the top of my head how feasible or not feasible that is for certain artists.
Sure.
As a consumer, do I want to see more of that in my comics? Yes. Like, but like, I don't know.
It's just hard. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how feasible it is, or if that's the, like that kind of stuff might even be discouraged.
Yeah, it feels that way. I remember Rob Liefeld talking about your boy Mike Carlin, Chris, about how like he would yell at him for like designing or yell at him for putting too much detail on pages, or something along those lines. So I don't know. It's just interesting. But this was a great issue. Chris, you want to add anything on this one?
No, I thought it was great as well. We don't see enough of Starfinger today. That's my contribution.
His name's Starfinger. He looks like Black Manta.
Sort of, yeah.
Maybe Starfinger is the Black Manta of the Milky Way.
Well, but now we're getting
listen.
Crazy
all I gotta say is I've got great ideas, DC. That one's for free. That one's for free. I'm letting you have that one. All right, next issue. Again, this is a great issue. Another fantastic issue. We have the return of Urg coming back. And we have forgive me, help me out, Joe. You know this better than me, or Chris. I'm assuming Joe will know off the top of the head. Who is this character that ends up being an android?
Oh, you're thinking of was it the Molecular Man or like Molecule Man? Yeah.
Yes, he looks awesome, and his power level was awesome, and he ended up being an android. I was disappointed. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? This guy seems rad. And then I'm like, all right, getting excited, and I'm like, no, he's a robot. No, I was like, I was bummed out. I love his design. I'm like, they need to bring this guy back somehow. Again, that's for free, DC. Bring this guy back if he hasn't been already. I'm assuming he has it.
Yeah, I know he shows up again in an issue in like the not too distant future from this run. I'm just trying to think of exactly when, but yeah, Molecular Master. That's what it is. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Phil.
You do see that. You do see this design at least one more time. So.
Okay, at least one more time. But this, I gotta tell you, seeing like Urg's like spirit essence, like basically go around the thing, I thought it was pretty clever. I'll be honest. Yeah. I thought it was pretty good. Like Cary Bates, you got it. You got this one.
Yeah, cool. He's good.
Chris, what did you think about this issue?
Oh, I really enjoyed it. I mean, the fact, even just the cover has such a good, solid, like purely sci-fi kind of vibe to it that I just really appreciate it. But also too, I just really love how dynamic the action is. I mean, the explosions that persist throughout a fair amount of pages in here is really cool. And the phonetic sound effects were something like this. What was it? Let me look it up real fast. On page 4 of the story, the zzzt, I just remember being like, that looks like it could shock me if I touched it. It's really cool. So yeah, I mean, it's just, again, you're seeing the dynamic here. You're getting to see a little bit more of Starboy's involvement here, which is cool. He gets a couple of little moments in here. But I also had like kind of a Byrne vibe for Molecular Master. Like, I feel like Byrne took inspiration from Molecular Master's image for the costumes that he put into Man of Steel on Krypton. And just like the darkness that envelops the whole body. But I mean, it seems like Byrne also is someone who was kind of a Cockrum fan, especially with like the faces. Like, Byrne is also very
sorry, I just want to add really quick. The guy in the issue where Chameleon Boy fakes out the guy with the gun, whatever. That's basically Gladiator from the Imperial Guard. I mean, it looks exactly like him. He's got the mohawk. He's huge. He's an alien. He's got like he's a different color. Basically, it's like it's Gladiator. So I mean, I'm not sure if Cockrum did that. I think Byrne was the one who designed Gladiator. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong, but one of those two did. But either way, it's basically a Cockrum design, regardless. You know, so it's because it looks just like him. But yeah, I totally am with you on that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so again, I love this issue. Is it this? No, it's not this issue, because this issue he comes back, but it's the next issue, which this is really quick. Joe, tell me, is this issue have any significance to 201 or sorry 202? Because it feels like this is a very random comic to have 1,000 pages. I mean, I'm obviously exaggerating, but it has like 1 million pages in it. I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, it's just got 800 backups combined with, it almost feels like an annual, but it's not an annual.
They used to periodically do this where they would, just do oversized issues for 60, but there was no like there was no specific reason that they were doing that for this issue. Like, there wasn't a particular milestone they were addressing or anything like that.
Okay. But yeah, if you want, it was the last issue, we can just wrap it up here. Joe, go ahead and, because this issue seems like kind of important, because Erg turns into Wildfire in this issue, I believe. And go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just start briefly by mentioning there's a featurette 6-pager that happens in this too, that's before the Devilfish story. That's just a Colossal Boy Shrinking Violet story. And the significance of that is Cockrum penciled it, but Mike Grell inked it, who takes over for Cockrum immediately after this issue. He is the immediate next artist on Legion. So so you do see that. But
so we read all of the Cockrum issues in this episode. Wow, I thought there might have been more. This is all of them.
Yeah, no, he but because the book, like Superboy, I think came out 8 times a year, and then it went to like every other month. Like it would eventually become a monthly, but like it was still not that point. But yeah, this is where we get Wildfire. It becomes Wildfire officially. They changed the name, and even though they have to update the the books and all that to get it done, they're willing to do it. It's an addendum to the Legion Charter specifically. It's
right.
As. But Cary Bates, as you'll notice, really only likes dealing with like about 4-ish Legion members at a time. So whenever he's doing something that involves like he wants to touch other things, they always have to be split up. So that way there's only like a handful of them everywhere. So that's why that happens separate, and it's like, oh, these other ones are on an adventure, and that's when we start following, Superboy, Monel, Light Lass, and Element Lad, and then they do basically. I feel like that's maybe the most like Doctor Who-ish kind of story, like the Devilfish, like you have the war into the Sea Devils and all that, and this idea of this like we've there's this misunderstanding, like it's Trekky too, but yeah, this idea of like these people are doing this thing, and maybe they think they're doing good, but they're actually like hurting other people on this planet and having to.
It's very Star Trek, in my opinion.
Yeah, like having to be like they have to know that even though they think they're doing this good thing, they're actually like taking away this food source, so they're going to have to communicate with this other species. So that part was cool. It was nice seeing them trying to give Element Lad something to do, because it's been a minute, but also Element Lad is just one of those characters who is way overpowered. So it's so they always have to like kind of downplay what he's able to do, because I mean, technically, if you could just change any element to any other element, like that's kind of the literal definition of like a god. So
like it's like Mr. Doc Manhattan, right? I mean, it's this was, by the way, it kind of blew my mind that this is Cockrum's last Legion issue, because again, the designs of the Devilfish, super cool looking, very, very Cho, whatever his name is from Starjammers, whatever the hell his name is. I always call him Chode, because I don't know what the hell else to call him. But the designs of the other aliens, he's just a really good designer. Like as dumb as it is to say this, through these Legion comics alone, guys, I kind of realized how good of a designer he really was. Again, these are like not like I'll have a year to think about this. Guy has like a very strict deadline to get these to flush these things out, and they're still dynamic and interesting. So that's pretty goddamn impressive in my opinion. So I gotta tell you, Dave Cockrum left a real big impression on me in these issues, and Cary Bates is fine, solid. I think it's a solid writer for the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But definitely the Cockrum stuff is what the art and the designs really what makes it shine. And I see X-Men all over these books. It's like I can't believe how big X-Men this is. Chris, go ahead and give your final thoughts on this issue, and we'll start wrapping up.
So I wasn't able to read the entirety of this issue. I just read the Starboy story, but the Starboy story was pretty heavy. And I wasn't expecting it to be as heavy as it was, especially when there's kind of this upswing at the end, and there's like a sense of optimism and kind of wonder to it, because he's offered a place on the subs. And I just thought it was a really well-balanced story. I thumbed through a couple of the other pages, and I liked that there was like a lore section that included some of the character designs and some of the information about some of the other characters. But no, just in terms of that Starboy story, damn, yeah, that's some good reading, and it kind of crystallizes the team dynamic and the standards that they hold themselves to in a way that I don't know if I wasn't necessarily expecting it, but it was just it was a little bit more of a gut punch than I thought it would be.
I gotta tell you, wrapping up my final thoughts, Joe, every time you've given us Legion, I'm not just bullshitting. I come away impressed, because I'm like, man, Jim Shooter, that guy's a legend. People will hate his guts, but whatever. He's a legend. Like, those comics for a kid, pretty goddamn impressive and pretty powerful too. And going into this, Cary Bates, I don't know anything about this writer as at all, but Dave Cockrum, I'm always, as we talked about music before, but like a big music person, I love seeing the Godfathers or seeing artists and bands they were in before. They were in like their major art, their made thing that made them whatever. Because you see the development, or like when an album for like a band gets bigger than the other ones they put out, and so you can see the evolution of that. That's exactly what we're getting here in these Legion comics. Which again, if you want to know all the titles, they're all going to be in the description below, and you get to see the evolution of an artist. It feels like, again, maybe I'm overstating it, but of Dave Cockrum, who eventually gives us the modern day, so the modern day designs and superheroes of all time. Yeah. And it's really cool to see that development through a different thing. And I'm always obsessed with how does an artist become who they are? Because no one wakes up and goes, I'm Frank Miller, Dark Knight Returns, like that's not going to happen. There is a development. Yeah. That's why the Daredevil stories are so good, because even though I think his early Frank Miller or the Frank Miller Daredevil stuff is solid, it's not. I think it's a little overrated. Don't kill me on that. I love Frank Miller. I love his Daredevil stuff. I like it more now, but I don't think it holds up as well as people say it does. At least the early issues. But you have like I always say this about any artist. Beck always said, you have to write 3 bad songs to write 1 good one. And I'm not saying anything's bad, but you have to get it out of your system to develop yourself. And Dave Cockrum, in my opinion, is seeing the slow development of these issues here. I'm not sure what he had done before. I don't know what you said, Joe. I saw a complete, not different, but you see the evolution of these comics if you read it. Like, it's obvious there. So I love this. I think this is fascinating. Love these characters. I'm getting really like these characters a lot. So thank you, Joe. Yeah. No problem. Give your final thoughts, and then I'll get Chris's, and then we'll head out and we'll throw a party.
Yeah, no, I'll just say that the Devilfish story, while it's not my favorite story in the book, but it's probably the strongest example of like Dave Cockrum's work in this. He makes a lot of bold choices. It's such a dynamic story. Like if he was like showing pages as like part of a portfolio to get work, the pages from this story I think is the ones you'd want to show, because of how much he experiments with stuff. I mean, you get like that one page that's like a page and a half splash and like things like that. He's doing really interesting things. The wildfire with the spelt backwards and all that, because
that was great. I love that. That was great.
Like there's a bunch of really good things in there like that, and I think that overall, like we were talking about. I mean, he basically comes in, resurrects the book like out of obscurity, and makes it the feature title on a book that's not technically their book, that they just became a backup in and like hijacked in a fairly short amount of time, and then bows out to co-create the biggest Bronze Age key issue. So,
well, do you think this is bigger than Gwen Stacy's death?
I think it goes for more money than Gwen Stacy's death. Is what I'm saying. Okay. But in terms of Gwen Stacy's death is arguably was so big it created the Bronze Age.
That's a good point. Yeah, I guess that's why I would say it's like a value. You're probably right. This goes for more, but the importance of it, that's a different conversation. Which again, I could go. Listen, I love those conversations too. I would love to debate that, discuss that, because that's fascinating. But I think you're right. I think as far as monetary and importance of like its legacy, maybe I would say not. If you again, I wouldn't say I would say this is definitely 1A or 1B at one point, because this is obviously a hugely important issue. So this is all you see the evolution to this comic book, in my opinion, through these Legion comics, which is fascinating. So
definitely.
Chris, anything last words on Long Live Legion right here?
I had fun. These are stories that I think more people should check out, and DC should make it easier for people to check them out. And long live the Legion.
Well, it's funny you say that, Chris, because they are. If you haven't looked here, so
Make it even easier than this is what I'm saying.
Hey, you know what? Don't hit a gift horse in the mouth, Chris. Come on, man. Come on. What are you doing here? Come on.
I kick him.
I know you're kicking. Listen, I wish it was on DC Unlimited. I wouldn't have to go through the dark web to get these issues, by the way. So I hate doing that, but I digress. I just want to throw it out there. You know, Joe has been so gracious with your time. You're super late. You're just an awesome dude. I really want to make that very clear. And I want to make sure I promote your stuff. We've got She Said Destroy. I have this on my wish list on in stock. I plan on getting it soon. Just know that it's coming. I will be getting it very shortly to read. I can't wait. I love this cover. It's fantastic.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I know. I love that cover too.
Yeah, it's a great cover. Beckstar, which I have read through Hoopla, fantastic. Way funnier than I was anticipating. I don't mean that as an insult. I always tell you that.
No, I appreciate that.
This is a funny book. If you like science fiction, Joe wrote this. It's great. And also the upcoming DC Pride issue dedicated to Rachel Pollack, a friend of yours. You have a story in here, which is super awesome. You said it was your first DC work. Congratulations.
Thank
awesome. You. Deserved. And yeah, talk a little bit about this and what this comic means to you a little bit here.
You know, I mean, Rachel was a good friend of mine. The anniversary of her passing is coming up because she passed April 7th of 2023. But yeah, this is a collection that's going to have both Doom Patrol number 70, which is the first appearance of Coagula and Codpiece, as well as Vertigo Visions, Brother Power the Geek, number 1, which is a one-shot she did with Mike Allred. It's an oversized one-shot. I believe it's like 56 pages.
Damn.
Of Mike Allred art. That's his, I believe, first assignment at DC. It's one of my favorite comics from Rachel as well. So it's those two, and then Rye Hickman and myself have a story to bring Coagula back into the spotlight, as she has not really been utilized, and some other familiar characters like Robot Man show up in there too. So
it's just so rad, man. Like, I saw that you were promoting that. I got super stoked for you, and just the fact that DC is doing honoring Rachel is super awesome. And I really want to make that emphasize. I want to understate or overstate it. I want to make sure people understand how it's rad that they're doing this. And the fact they've reached out to people like yourself who knew her super well, and I think the importance of her legacy. It's awesome. I give a lot. I think DC. I don't want to kiss and suck on DC here too much, but I'm just going to say that I've been very impressed how they've done just in DC in general. To be honest, the last couple of years, I've been very impressed in how they've done their business and their quality of writers, and they brought in. I've been really impressed. So I mean, this was like another like feather in the cap. Like, damn, like they didn't have to do this, and the fact that they went out of their way to do it is pretty impressive. So kudos to you. Congratulations to you. I hope they give you more work from this. You deserve it.
Thank you. That's very nice.
I want people who are the 3 people who watch the binge on the reg, go buy this issue. Me and Chris are buying this issue to support Rachel and Joe and all their, and Pride in general, the DC Pride and everything. So go check it out. Joe, thanks again for coming on and staying up late. Like, I love this. Is super rad. We'll plan the next. I'm excited what the next group is. I have no idea what the next segment of Long Live the Legion, what the next creative group is. I have an idea maybe, but we'll see. I'll wait. Maybe there might be something in between there. We'll see. But we'll get you on to. I have a couple show ideas. I'll ask you off the air. I'm curious if you're interested because I got to get your. We'll ask you later, but we'll hopefully see Joe again soon. So maybe we'll get you to promote DC Pride and do some fun stuff with Rachel. That'd be kind of cool too. But thanks for coming on. Anything you else want to promote that I forgot?
I mean, those are the big things, and the King Arthur and the Knights of Justice Volume 1.
Thank you.
That comes out April 24th. That's my first young adult graphic novel. So I hope people check that out.
dang it, I thought I had it. I had it in here. I think I deleted it by accident. I had it in here. I swear
it's
to you.
fine.
I'm sorry, but no, that's rad too. So yeah, super rad. When's that come out again? You said
April 24th.
Oh, that's coming up too. Damn. Okay, we'll have to get you on for that. Maybe we can do like a quasi promote both DC Pride and King Arthur, like a big.
Yeah, we can figure something out.
We'll figure something out.
Yeah.
Chris, last things to say before we head out here.
I'm good, man.
Well, all right. If you had come in late, go start it over because this is a big binge. This is a good binge. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. Super appreciate everyone who's already gone. And we'll be doing Long Live the Legion here soon in a couple months. Chris, why don't you take us out, my friend?
Read more comics.
Good night, everybody.